Hey everybody, video here for you today. And before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of things. When I was returning some comments on my Q&A video, Atlantis, Ancient America, and more, the one I just did, I was listening to what I said, and I said something during that video, and the little voice in my head said, you shouldn't have said it that way. I said in that video that the Eye of the Sahara could not have been Atlantis in any way, shape, or form. So I just want to correct that. I listened to that, and I don't think that was the correct way to put it. I'll leave a slight possibility, just a teeny, tiny crack in the door, that maybe that was Atlantis, maybe a 1% chance. To say it absolutely wasn't 100% for sure is just being too pig-headed and stubborn in my own research. So I just want to say that in those initial comments, sometimes I'm a little too opinionated. In the comments on Jimmy's original video, I probably crossed the line, and sometimes I do that. I'm a very opinionated person. When I played hockey, I got a lot of 10-minute misconducts because at certain points I would just skate over to the referee, and in very specific terms, I would tell him what I thought about his officiating. So I have always been opinionated, and sometimes I cross the line, and sometimes I know I'm being a jerk, and I realize that. And Jimmy, I do apologize for being a jerk on that original video, but your video was very good, informative, but I just don't agree with the basic premise. Now here is a video I did last summer on the pyramid that is covered up at Zawyet Aryan. And this is a video that I'm quite proud of just because other channels picked up this story. I know Jimmy did a video on it, Matt did a video, Vlad, and I've seen a few others. But I just want to point you to a video that was done not very long ago, and Pukajay was one of my recommended channels, and I guess those guys are doing kind of individual videos now. I'm not sure quite the story. I just found his channel last night when I watched Ancient History Criticisms video. He did just a few shoutouts to some channels, and I just happened to find one of the Pukajay guys' channels here. But they did a video, and anybody interested in the pyramid at Zawyet El Aryan and Djedefre's pyramid, and this is exactly what I talked about. These pyramids are exactly the same. But this is a video done a month ago, and I thought this was excellent. I thought this was just a terrific video that went over the two sites here that are very mysterious and seem to be very ancient. I'm glad I watched that, and I'm glad I found this channel, but here are some other videos. They're in the Serpent at Abu Ghraib, and that is between Zawyet Al Aryan and Abu Sir. That's where Abu Ghraib is. But here is their video, almost a half-hour video at Abu Rawash and Zawyet Al Aryan. Also one video in Peru, but I will leave the link to this channel below, and I highly recommend it. Now, my video today is on a mound site in Toronto, Canada, and got a lot of messages from you in Canada saying, hey, we're part of Ancient America too, and those were great comments. But as soon as I found and started reading about the site and started watching this video, I knew I'd be bringing this story to you. But I appreciate Christopher, the producer of this video, getting back to me on email and sending me some other information. But I'm going to include about a 15-minute clip from a half-hour video that he did, a documentary on this site, to give you people some good information here. But this is called Thunderbird Mound. This is a pretty unique large mound. It probably stretches back over 3,000 years. There is no sign. Kind of disrespected, embroiled in controversy. So I'm just going to share about 15 minutes from that full video. I will leave links to Christopher's website and his original video and all that stuff in the description, but I just thought this was excellent. And this is the kind of information I love to pass on. This is a story that belongs on my YouTube channel. So here is Christopher and his excellent documentary, just a part of it, and I will leave the full link below.
Hello, my name is Christopher Roush, and I am co-founder of Modern Knowledge. I'd like to bring to your attention some information that I have recently become aware of. One I feel is a microcosm of a much larger cultural and historical issue we are experiencing as a society. This is a brief video essay regarding Thunderbird Mound. The story of Thunderbird Mound involves politics, money, territorial rights and land claims, information, disinformation. It involves all levels of Canadian government, municipal, provincial, and federal, and the First Nations people of Canada. It is a story that is embroiled in controversy on all levels, but at the end of the day, it's the sacred, ancient site known as Thunderbird Mound that is suffering. And this is a brief synopsis of that story, one that is repeated throughout North America when it comes to the acknowledgement, preservation, and dignity that these sites like this are given in today's modern age. It was my honor to visit Thunderbird Mound with my good friends Starchild Eliza Knockwood and Cassandra Burnaby, both women being very powerful First Nation voices here in Canada. I asked Eliza and Cassandra to join me at this location on their recent visit to Toronto to pay our respects to the ancestors that constructed Thunderbird Mound. We were joined that day, through a fortunate set of circumstances, by Dr. Robert Galway. Dr. Galway is a surgeon and a geologist, and has devoted much time to documenting the history of Thunderbird Mound, and was instrumental in bringing this location to my attention through his published books and online articles on the history of the Humber River watershed here in Toronto, the setting for the mound itself. To set the scene, Thunderbird Mound is located on the east bank of the Humber River in the west end of Toronto, Canada. The Humber River was a vital trade route for the indigenous populations here in southern Ontario long before the French and English established themselves in the area in the late 1700s. Thunderbird Mound is of earthen construction and shares the east bank of the Humber River alongside a much more recent indigenous village known as Tieagon. These two archaeological sites are not to be confused and are not associated in any way. But the Tieagon First Nations village at this location does play a major role in the ongoing saga of the much earlier archaeological site of Thunderbird Mound. The mound itself has been dated anywhere between 8,000 years to 3,000 years ago, and it is registered as a legitimate archaeological site. It has been cited as containing such rare artifacts that date back to the Paleo-Indian period here in Canada, with the possibility of Clovis associations. Surveys have been done, but information on the results of those surveys are incomplete at best and are hard to obtain. What is known is that this is an ancient sacred site located in the heart of a major metropolitan area that has not been given its proper respect or shown the dignity it deserves by all involved. The indigenous village of Tieagon, again only established 400 years ago, has been populated by various First Nation groups throughout its early years. It is this fact and the interactions by these various indigenous representative groups with the Canadian and municipal governments over land right claims that the problems begin. I was dumbfounded to live mere minutes from what can be considered one of the oldest archaeological and sacred sites here in North America, and had grown up in the shadow of Thunderbird Mound without any prior knowledge to its existence, let alone its location. Information on this mound is scant at best, and standing at the base of the mound, one would think it's part of the natural landscape, primarily due to its antiquity, but also due to the fact that there is no public acknowledgement of its presence or its amazing significance. It is of my opinion that Thunderbird Mound is far older than any recent indigenous culture can lay claim to or speak for, and that there may have been intentional misrepresentation of the site and the archaeological findings by the Canadian government. Whatever the truth of the matter, we must start over, and all involved should put their differences aside and do what is right, and that is to honor Thunderbird Mound and to allow the voices of its builders and those buried there to come forward from the ancient past. It is critical in this modern world that we embrace the heritage of all of our ancestors and put aside any past intolerances and move into a cultural mindset of peace, mutual respect, and bring the history and teachings of our ancestors into proper context to benefit all children of this planet from this day forward. It is with that said, I will carry forward with this video essay with footage from our brief visit to Thunderbird Mound with Eliza, Cassandra, and Dr. Galway. But I must stress that Thunderbird Mound is in desperate need of preservation at this time, and also given a proper archaeological assessment and public acknowledgement in order to save this sacred location, to allow future generations the ability to listen closely to the voices of the past and learn from the knowledge of our ancestors who built this special place. I hope this video can continue on the struggle to raise awareness of Thunderbird Mound and also to engage all peoples who share an interest in the site to come together and complete the vision we all share: preservation and the return of dignity and respect to our ancestors at this and many other locations.
Well, I come from an area called Red Lake, which is north of Kenora. I was born in Kenora. It's on the Manitoba-Ontario border. It's basically woodland Ojibwe, which I grew up with. But this is the stone commemorating the Seneca Indian village as the capital of the Seneca Indian tribe, which was at that time the 5 nations, not the 6 nations. And the reason is this point of land juts out into the river, and they could control, and it's the first shallow spot in the river from the lake, which is where the old mill is. So they could control the traffic across the river and such. So they set up their village here. Now there's quite a conflict between the 6 Nations people and the Mohawk Huron platoon as to really who owned the land, and I don't want to get into that conflict. Suffice it to say that this land was probably peopled by Mohawk platoon Huron, and they basically got forced out by the Seneca Iroquois tribes before the defeat of Montcalm in Quebec, and so it ended up being a Seneca Indian village. Then the Seneca abandoned it with the French fur trade intrusion into this area, and then who knows what happened. And the Mohawk came back down, and they were the ones that actually signed the Treaty of Toronto, the so-called Shotgun Treaty, turning over the lands to the new English government. And even to this day, the 6 Nations say this is our land, and so on. Right below my house is I want to show you this is the Indian. So I have a chapter on the Aboriginal population of this area, and here is your wintertime Thunderbird Mound. Of course, the Thunderbird petroglyph, and we'll go down and see that.
Oh my gosh!
This, in fact, is the original village of the Seneca Indians here when the French fur trading people came into the area. Okay. So one time you got the river, okay, and this is Bobby Point coming down, and the old mill's down here in the river, and the river's doing this.
Yeah.
Okay. Then the river decides to do this, and that's a mark of a river getting older.
Right.
And it cuts right across there, leaving this with early on water in it, and that's called a ewe lake.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or an oxbow lake.
Oxbow Lake. That's it.
Oxbow lake. Okay. So when the river came here, it makes sense that this is where they had put an Indian village or an Indian mound or whatever.
Because they're on the river bank.
They're here, Thunderbird Mound.
That's it right there.
And the reason it's here so far inland is that it really wasn't inland. This was the riverbank. Okay, so this is the old riverbank, and if you're a scuba diver, you'd put your tanks on up there, and down you come. So this is the mound. It's got all the secondary growth. I brought the counselor down for the area 3 years ago. It's actually 4 now. She's been re-elected, new set, saying, wouldn't it be nice if something could be done to not rehabilitate, but to try and provide some aesthetic background or whatever.
Some context.
It is a registered archaeological site. There are some of the mounds that are controversial down High Park where there's claim that they are burial mounds, and I probably think on the oral history they are, but they haven't been able to prove the case, whereas this one has actually been proven and such. And we'll walk around it, but we're walking on grounds that by walking on it, we're desecrating the site a bit. And I just want you to know that. When I brought the counselor down, there had been a fellow by the name of Red Arrow, I guess, Red Wolf, and he had formed something called the Teagana Preservation Society. He's had a heart attack and he died, and nobody has taken that up. But there, in fact, was a Mohawk flag flying here 4 years ago on one of the trees. So we can go up and around this way.
Sure. Do you have tobacco?
Yeah, I do. In there.
Okay.
And they really haven't.
So what has been uncovered here? I guess there's been brief archaeological assessments done?
There has been, and I know that they have actually found red ochre clay. And they've dated it. They typed it to clay similar to ceremonial clays that come from the Kenora Red Lake, northwestern Ontario area. And there's been other artifacts that show that it clearly was a result of trade in what was called the Hopewell Nation, almost down to the Gulf of St. Lawrence. So I have not seen any of the specific artifacts myself from this site. But when 2003, I guess it was, the Enbridge Gas was putting a new pipeline into number 47, and they uncovered a moose antler ceremonial comb. Which I have a picture and a skeleton. So our whole area is embargoed by the need to do an archaeological assessment of anybody that wants to do puts a swimming pool or whatever in.
Yeah.
But this site has been basically surveyed, it's registered. There is a conflict between the First Nations people and the City of Toronto and the archaeologists they've hired. And he's come down with a couple of reports that have not been particularly supportive of First Nations claims to some of the lands based on simply word of mouth. And so they don't accept a lot of the archaeological stuff that the city has done. And this fellow unfortunately didn't keep his paperwork up, so his license was suspended for a year for failure to file reports. Now that's become the focus of the First Nations argument. And sometimes I think they get sidetracked on a minutiae issue rather than the big picture, and it distracts the attention overall. But there's no question that this site has been and is registered.
And it's dated to officially right now, what's
3,000 years.
3,000.
3,000 plus, It's probably more like 3,500.
Why am I seeing dates online of 8,000 Clovis culture? Is that just speculative?
It's speculative, yeah.
Okay.
Best I can tell. But as I say, if you understand the geology, then you can understand why this is here. It's part of the riverbank, and it was part of the settlement that inhabited the riverbank.
Oh, wonderful!
I just came down to do. I'm not going to walk up to the top.
Yeah.
But if you take a look at some of the Aboriginal mounds on Google it, and the ones that are contemporaneous to this in the United States, and some of the steps that they have built and to outline them. That's right.
So basically, this is an artificial hill here.
Yeah.
And then under here would be
the burial
human remains?
Yeah. or artifacts.
And artifacts.
Yeah. Now they've never dug down to find human remains, but there's no doubt that they would have. And you know, today you can use ground sensing ultrasound equipment and that type of technique.
GPR and what have you. Yeah.
I'm just going to walk the property
This morning, and I've been doing this all across Canada, just to honor our ancestors, your ancestors, whoever's around us. So a little piece of what I'm eating gets put into a plate with tobacco, just to honor the ancestors that are there. And so I felt it was appropriate to take the ancestor dish, and we normally offer it back to the land or to the water, wherever we're close to, but I felt it appropriate to bring it here and to feast the ancestors that are here.
Well, I'm glad you're sharing that with
this tree too.
I feel privileged.
And so we felt that this tree that's really rooted there would be the one that we're going to offer it to. So
Here is Christopher's website, the Thunderbird Mound Project, and I just think he deserves a lot of credit. I want to thank him not only for letting me use his video, but for caring about a sacred ancient site. I will leave the link to his website here, his channel, and as much as I can in the video description. I just thought that was an excellent video, and I encourage you to watch the full thing. Hope you thought this was interesting. This is what my channel is all about. And you all have a very nice day.